Hi, this is Shashi Solluna from Live Tantra and Tantra Made Easy. Today, I'm really excited to be inviting someone who I first saw online on Instagram, I believe. I saw this guy making videos about the masculine, about how to be a man, and I was really captivated by his messages, the words that he used, his eloquence. I feel that he's a real thought leader in our field, speaking about a lot of topics that many men and women are exploring currently, but really bringing a special view and language to it all. And so his name is Ori Dahan, and he works as a men's embodiment facilitator and does a lot of shadow integration work. And he also works as a sex and relationship coach for couples. So it is my delight to welcome him here today.
Thank you,
So
Shashi. It's a pleasure to be here.
yeah, I'm really thrilled to have this conversation because since you appeared on my Instagram, I've been following you and really enjoying your messages that you have. And I feel it's especially important to have
Hmm.
guidance for men navigating this world. This is going to be the focus of our topic, right? Because it's a
Hmm.
hard time for men to work out how to be masculine or how to relate right now. So maybe I could
Yeah.
begin by asking how you got into this work. What was your
Yeah.
journey?
Thank you, Shashi. It's been a journey. Since I kind of went into spirituality, I started with really deep hatha yoga and meditation and deep spiritual practice. Then it went to Tantra, but more like white Tantra and like more the energetics and really spiritual, in-depth devotional Tantra. And there I got introduced to this masculine feminine elements, right? So from there it kind of showed itself that what it is to be a man. It's like I can meditate and I can connect to God, right? But I'm here in a man's body. I relate to other men, I relate to other women. How can I relate in a way that is beneficial and positive for me, and also that is enriching and positive for the people I come in contact with? And what
Mhm.
I realize is that that's not completely clear, and it's kind of confusing in this day and age. So I always say in men's work that one of the main question is what is needed when you're tuning into your core, into a presence, and just ask what is needed right now. And
Mhm.
so the answer that came from me is men's work. Men's work
Yeah.
is needed right now, right? Men initiating men learning from other men connecting to other men, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah.
It's interesting topic. I mean, like first of all, there's a lot of debate around gender, but like what we see in our spiritual world that I think maybe you relate with is that often men enter the spiritual world and kind of go into their feminine, and by that I mean like, oh, I'm just going to go with the flow, and often it goes with wearing more flowy clothing and
Mhm.
getting in touch with feelings and things like that, which can make men great friends for women because they're getting more empathic and emotional, but it can really affect polarity and sexuality. So what's your experience with the journey that men go on as they enter spirituality? Did you go through that yourself, or?
I have actually, and thank you for bringing that up because I consider this to be a very confusing time for men, right? Because we live in a society that on the one hand is saying like don't be too aggressive, don't be too dominating, don't be an abuser, don't be a predator, which all of them are great and I'm standing behind all of them. But in the same time it tells us as men, they say, where are all the men? And well, I need you to take me, I want you to fuck me, if we can use these words here. I don't know
There's
your
no.
podcast guidelines. Perfect. So like where is the man that can like polarize me and open me and hold me and take me, right? So
Yeah.
that man is like, wait, okay, you tell me not to do that, but that now you want this. So who am I? What's allowed? Yeah. We domesticate men, we almost castrate men, and then
Mhm.
we're asking them like where are your balls?
Mhm.
Right? So yeah,
I mean, we
it's
had
funny and it's sad a little bit, you know.
it is. I mean, we had this whole Me Too movement, right? And now also in the Tantra world, there's lots of people calling out abusers and violations. So you can see how there's this mixed message going to men of like, you know, you got to ask for consent and not violate and this and that. At the same time, you're right. I'm hearing that because I run women's groups. The women are saying, where are all the men? And I want to be taken. Like they're calling for that polarity back. So I think we're all stuck in this issue where there's this kind of unhealthy masculine that has caused rape and abuse and harm for like generations. But then if we just drop all the masculine and have men go with the feminine, the women are left unfulfilled. So it's like, you know, what does the new masculine look like and how do we get there?
Wow, what a question, you know. How much time do we have? No, I'm joking. So for me, the man that is needed right now is a man that has connected and integrated his feminine, right? And when we talk masculine and feminine, there's a lot of ways to describe them, right? But my inner feminine is my ability to feel. It's my ability to attune. It's my ability to connect to my emotions, right? And to connect to nature, to another person, to everything, right? So I need her on board. She informs my masculine, right? Without my inner feminine, my masculine is going to dominate and just bulldozer because I'm like, oh, purpose. Okay. Oh, I'm like that. I'm attracted to that. Oh, and like, oh, I crossed the boundary. Sorry, I didn't see it. I didn't feel it. So she's like, hey, right? What's happening right now? What's happening in the body of my lover? What's happening in my relationship? What's happening when I'm not on purpose, when I'm living a meaningless, momentary pleasure-oriented life? That feels really bad for a man, for any human, right? But it's my feminine that tells me, wow, this feels kind of empty and pointless, or I've hurt someone. That doesn't feel good. So yes, we need to go into the yin. We need to get her on board. We need to start feeling and to kind of loosen up the structure. But then when we have her on board, it doesn't stop there. So the type of man, the spirit in the spiritual conscious community that you talked about, they stop there and they get like, okay, now I'm flowy and I'm like that, and I just want to taste all the Shakti, and I'm just like, whatever, right? But there is then a coming back into a masculinity that is now informed, right? I reclaim my masculinity. And now it's informed, now it's empowered. Because the masculine is structure, right? Is the container, is the direction. You know, I'm here in service of something bigger than myself. I'm here to open up. I'm here to create freedom and love, right? So, and I'm also, I know we're like with gender, there is all of that kind of, we're moving beyond roles, but in any person, like I also want to protect and create safety, right? These are all kind of like the masculine traits that I don't want to throw the baby with the bathwater, right? So that's a little frame of that new man, or the man that we need. Basically, men that are connected to their heart, connected to their balls, who are sensitive and attuned. They still have their teeth. They're still willing to. Sorry.
What do you mean by the teeth?
The teeth is like, you know, I can still like hunt something. I can still stand up for something. I can still stand for what I believe. Or if I see something that is out of alignment, I will call it out. Instead of just being like, oh, you know, like.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is like that maybe the unhealthy masculine, the old school unhealthy masculine just is the masculine part with no connection to their own inner feminine. So you were saying like bulldozering, like I want this and I'm doing this, and that's what we've seen so much of, that makes a lot of us be sort of like anti-masculine. And I think if a man kind of sees only that as a toxic, or you know, as a toxic masculine, then he's going to reject his own masculine and then go into his feminine, and that's kind of seen as the good thing in society. But what you're saying is that then once they found that feminine, they need to go and bring it back. to that
Yeah.
masculine and create this kind of integration.
Yeah.
Do you think they need to have a period? Do you think it's essential to have a period of kind of switching from like old school masculine and then switching and being in a feminine and then going to integration? Or can men
Yeah.
go straight from unhealthy to a healthy masculine?
You know, Shashi, it's such an intricate personal journey. So I cannot say like there is what do they call that? Prescription
Right.
that would fit everyone. Because I
Yeah.
might be a man that is super connected to his feminine since birth. You know, I grew up with sisters. I didn't have a father. And I can be someone who's super macho. You know, I come from one of the culture that are like still kind of macho, and so it's different paths and different practices for different men where they're
Right.
at. But I love that you mentioned toxic masculinity, because that's like a big buzzword right
Yeah.
now in the world. And when we talk about toxic masculinity, we think about that abuser, that aggressor, that the man that like bulldozers and dominates and all of that. But the other side that is really important for us to know and to name and to become aware of is the other side of that spectrum is the nice guy, right?
Mm.
And the nice guy is another expression of toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Why?
Just
Yeah, because he's like, he's people pleaser. He tells everyone what they want to hear. He's not
Mm.
honest, right? He's manipulative. So he will give you, and he was like, yeah, whatever you want, baby, and like that, and give you and cross his own boundaries. But there is a hidden contract there, because
Mm.
he expects from you, if I'll be nice to her, then she'll have sex with me. Or if I'll be
Mm.
nice to her, then she will validate me and make me feel like I'm a good boy, right? So it's almost a more shadowy
Yeah.
expression of toxic masculinity.
That's
And
honest.
it's less honest. The toxic like aggressor, you're like, okay, what I see is what I get. It's kind of like
Yeah.
just fucking red flags, and like stay away from that. The nice guy is almost like a Trojan horse, because
Mm-hmm.
he does want something from you.
Yeah.
He's not is in power, and he's gonna try to manipulate in very kind of shadowy ways to get what he needs and
Yeah.
wants, but he's not gonna tell you what he needs and what he wants. So
Mm.
between these two toxic extremes of the toxic masculinity spectrum or masculinity spectrum, in the middle point there is the one that has those capacities of tuning into you, being nice, being sensitive, holding you, emotionally intelligent, but also, hey, this is my truth. These are my boundaries. This is what I want. And I
Mm-hmm.
can go for it. I have direction, right? So that middle point is the healthy masculine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is the masculine that we want to see in the world.
Mm-hmm. And so, how does a man get there? I see. I so resonate when you talk about the nice man, nice boy. Really, it's almost like an immature version, isn't it? That the pleaser and the lack of honesty that's there, and it's a strategy, right? It's a strategy that's been put in, and it's also like a reaction to, okay, I don't want to be that obvious macho abuser kind of type, so I'll swing over here and be this. In
Mm-hmm.
my experience, those are the men that are, I don't know if you agree with this, but they're the most likely to betray, to like have some shadow that's really hidden. So there's, because the niceness is on the top, so the shadow has to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
you know
Mm-hmm.
um, and so there can be manipulation and lies, but also resentment. Like, I think that's one of the most toxic things that happen, because it's not authentic, right? And it's trying, if it doesn't get what it wants, and because in that archetype there's giving up of one's own needs, or trying to
Mm-hmm.
manipulatively, it turns into resentment. So
Yeah.
what would you, if any man is listening to this and he's like, oh my God, I'm that nice guy, what's your first bit of advice for breaking that mold? Is it just to become the rebel? Is it, because I think sometimes when we see ourselves being too nice, it's like, right, that's it, I'm going to get a big motorbike and like, and
Mm-hmm.
swing.
Yeah, thank you for your question. And I just want to talk about the resentment, just as with a sentence, is that the nice guy resents the feminine because he doesn't get what he wants from her, right? Because she goes and makes love with the bad boys because they have the masculine, they're polarizing. And he's like, how did you go with him? I'm so nice to you. I'm like, I respect you, blah, 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 blah. So he resents the feminine and he
Yeah.
wants something for her. He resents the masculine as well. He doesn't trust the masculine. He has more women friend than male friend. He doesn't
Mhm.
trust other men. He doesn't trust his own masculinity. So he's basically left with nothing, right? And it's a super painful way of existence, really. It's even more painful than the aggressor, right?
Yes.
But we see more and more of that. And I'm the first guy to say I'm a recovering nice guy, right? I'm recovering from that. So for the your question, what to tell to those men? First of all, I'm gonna say that, and with putting like taking my hat off, go read No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Glover. I forget his first name. Phenomenal book that really breaks down the whole syndrome and why even how does it come to be and how to recover from that. And he calls it recovery. It's almost like an addiction.
Mhm.
So I would advise to any man to read that book. Second of all, spend time with other men. Spend time with other men that you appreciate, that you respect, and because we as men, we need to spend time with other men. We need to learn what it is to be a man from other men. We need to be initiated by other men. It's built into our biology, right?
Mhm.
And it's very different than the message that we get today in society that men are the lone wolf, they're the island, they're not like their competition. You know, I had that. Men are competition, men are assholes. Like, I don't trust other men. Actually, in our biology, how we actually built what our cells remember is that we're a tribe. You know, we used to go on hunting journeys into nature only
Mhm.
with men, working, hunting for the tribe, for our women, for our brothers. And we would spend time with our brothers, with our uncles, with our cousins, with our fathers, with our grandfathers. And we would watch how do they hunt? How do they treat the women? How do they show up? Right? And we
Mhm.
would sit with this time apart from the tribe. We would sit around the fire, share wisdom, share stories, play, right? We would have time with we don't want anything from one another. It's so relieving to be with men with no women around. So I hold men's circles, and finally we're not competing over nothing, right? Knowingly or unknowingly, there's no women. Okay, so I'm here with my brothers. Great. This is different. Like the competition goes down, the danger goes down. We open our hearts, we share depth,
Mhm.
and you feel that this is so freaking nourishing to a part of my soul I didn't know was screaming for that nourishment. So that's
And
one.
when I hear you talk about that, I think, my God, now we grow up with the absent father archetype mostly because instead of going hunting with men, it's like disappearing off to the office and being in a cubicle alone or being in an office alone and working long hours. It's like the complete opposite. There's so much aloneness built into the modern day structure, that at
Mhm.
least, even going to war with people is more bonding than like going off and sitting in an office
Yeah.
cubicle on your own. Um,
And
I think men's groups are essential to bring that piece back.
yeah. And there is the absent father and there is the absence of initiation.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be repetitive, but initiation is crucial for a man to find his power, to find his manhood. Now,
So tell
what
me
is
more
in
about.
Sorry.
Yes, what is it? What does that look like? Tell me more about it. Like, what does that look like? How does a man, and especially now we don't have the tribal initiations.
Yeah. So for me, and what I discovered in my journey on my embodied experience, and what I also facilitate for men, the elements of initiation is going apart from the feminine, right? Because until then, we're connected to our mother. We're sucking on the teeth. We're boys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're like being told that you're beautiful the way you are. You're like, you're my precious, and like that. We don't have responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
We're on the boy cast of the tribe. Then one day you're getting taken off into nature alone, only with the men, with your elders, no women around,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you also get sent into nature and you face your mortality. You face
Mm-hmm.
challenge, you face discomfort, you you face yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And in that facing, you find your power. You learn that you're a human. You learn how to take care of yourself. You know who you are, what you're here for, what do you have to offer. Once you find yourself, you have something to offer. You get initiated into manhood with other men and elders and men who's done the work. Then you come back into the tribe and you come back different. Now you have responsibility. Now you come back to your mother with all your devotion to the feminine, but you're like, hey, now I'm still your son, but I'm also your protector. I'm also here to hold you. I'm also here to provide. I'm also here for the benefit of the tribe. I'm not a liability anymore. Now I'm taking my role in this tribe. That's an initiation.
As you speak it, I'm like, wow, I know so many men who are still like, even in 40s and 50s, still like the boy because they haven't been sort of forced in a way into that position of taking responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think that's so crucial. And how do you think we can bring that back? I guess just men's groups, huh? Or shamanic work.
Men's group, shamanic work, men being initiated by other men. So getting a men's coach, going to a men's retreat, but really like talking to elders, right? It doesn't need to be someone who's older than you. It just needs to be a wisdom keeper
Mm,
in the field of embodied masculinity, because we're not getting taught how to hold our sex. We don't get taught how to hold our women. We don't get taught how to show up.
mhm,
So, even if you have a coach, it's an initiation, right?
mhm, mhm.
Um, yeah.
Can we talk a bit more about sexuality and especially, I think, the shadow? Like we talked about the nice guy, and with that idea of the nice guy. I mean, in many ways, so many men are kind of forced into that by society, aren't they? Like, if you want, they're forced into this kind of marriage archetype of being the nice husband, but then the shadow is like sneakily looking at porn in the spare bedroom or having an affair, or like, they don't feel allowed to bring that part of their sexuality to the light, if you like, or of the part that they bring to society doesn't
Hmm.
include any of that. And so it has to go
Hmm.
somewhere. So either it's going to get repressed or distorted in my experience. So can we talk a little
Hmm.
bit about like what about that piece on this journey? How do you, and you yourself call yourself a shadow integration coach, and I've had a look
Hmm.
at some shops and I see the men like pushing each other. And of course, you come from Israel, which is known that every man has to join the army, and obviously it's a topic
Hmm.
right now. Like, how does all of this fit together? Like the shadow, how do we integrate the violent piece, the aggressive piece, the sexual piece? How does it? It's a big topic, but
Yeah, it's a big topic. I'm like, is my mind is going like, phew, so I'm like gonna like keep it here. And so,
maybe we can start with like sexual desire. It's like it's so judged. Like all men are rapists. We hear a phrase like that. So how does a
hmm.
man deal with a phrase like that bouncing around? How do you deal with your own sexual energy, and how do you make it
Hmm.
and bring it out of the shadows?
So with the shadow, first I would say in how I work in my framework, a shadow is kind of like a union perspective. So the shadow is everything that is out of the light of consciousness.
Mm.
So it's our subconscious, right? Practically, it's everything that I'm not aware of, but it's running the show behind the
Yeah.
scenes, right? So I have shadows in every element of my life, and just doing the work into what's happening there. Instead of looking outwardly, saying like, oh, she's like that, or he's like that, or that happened because of them. They say one finger points outwards, three fingers or four fingers point backwards. So it's doing this like, oh, I'm triggered, oh, I'm judging, oh, I'm projecting. What is being touched in me? What is happening in me? What is my judgment on that part of myself? Right? It's taking that
Mm.
responsibility and ownership that is crucial for a man, right?
Mhm.
So that's some of the shadow kind of perspective. How to integrate my sexuality?
I mean, in our society, it feels like, like we talked about this paradox that women want to be taken, right? Ravishment is what David Data would call it. And it's so
Mhm.
close to like rape. And it's like, how does a man find that healthy, conscious place to express what we might call the dark masculine
Mhm.
without causing harm?
Well, I think the first step is to do the shadow work and integration around the shame, right?
Mm.
And understanding that in the core of all these things there are beautiful desires and needs, right? So the desire and needs of the masculine, but also in most cases I've encountered of the feminine, to be taken, to be ravished, to be directed, to be opened up wider than she ever could imagine, right? So she wants that. Obviously, she doesn't want to be raped or abused or violated, right? So, but she wants that. And he wants that as well, right? He wants to hold her and open her in that way. So, first of all, owning that, hey, I want that, and it's actually beautiful, and it can be wanted, right?
Yeah.
It goes into the shadow and suppression because like, never ever do that to anyone. That's not okay. They don't want that. That's toxic and la 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 la. So
Mm-hmm.
going to the core and kind of owning, reclaiming the pure core, the pure need, the pure desire that we both want.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of shame there. Some of us grew up in a religious sense. Some of us got told something by our parents. Some of us crossed the boundary unknowingly. We were young and we felt the pain of our partner. It's like, okay, processing the shame, owning that, reclaiming that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then how do I do that? Create a container to that is consensual, that is safe, that is beneficial,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because in your relationship, you're with your partner. Maybe she doesn't want to be domed. Maybe she doesn't want to be taken in day-to-day life. She actually wants you to agree with her. She wanna like easy going, right? But maybe in bed, she wants you to like take her, ravish her, maybe pull her hair, choke her, but like she doesn't want that the day-to-day. So here we're opening a container, and the baseline of the container is always safety and consent and attunement,
Mm.
right? And then we start leaning to those dark edges. And once you lean, you don't just like poof, like do that. You just lean. I call it, you mark it. So a little bit next to the neck, a little bit on the jawline, a little bit, and see, and yeah. And I want to say, you have to have really good breaks. You have to have self-control.
Those kind of breaks.
If you run by your sexual desire, if you run by your sexual energy, you're not a safe man.
Mm.
You're not.
Mm. You need the consciousness, the awareness, like a bigger layer holding the sexual energy.
Mhm.
So you
Yeah,
can.
there is a big work of connecting to our sexual energy, integrating it, and getting on top of it so it doesn't control us, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, an empowered man is a man that is reclaiming all these elements of himself, but is not ruled by them.
Mm-hmm.
Then he is actually conscious, is actually in choice. Power comes from power of choice, right? I can see this woman, I'm attracted to her, I'm inspired by her, and I don't need to go and do something about it. I'm not like, oh, let me go and like try to conquer that or have that. I can sit here. So we sit in our power, we sit in our desire. So it's not about suppressing the desires, it's not about putting away those things, it's about allowing it, sitting in it.
Like holding
That's,
it, right?
yeah, that's a power posture. That's an
Yeah.
energetical posture of an integrated, empowered masculine.
Yeah. It's a big
And
concept in Qigong. I really resonate with, like, can you hold your energy, not just follow it and push it or repress it, but like hold it. And I experience that as being a deeply masculine quality, to like hold your power rather than discharge it automatically, right?
mhm. And just to like make it less mental, like a kind of example. So just imagine you're with your partner, with your lover, and he's there and he's looking at you and he's looking deeply at you. You can feel he's present, you can feel his body, and he looks at you and he's like, I want you, right? But he's not moving. He's not just like, oh, I want you, and he's just like grabbing. He sits there. So he owns that. He lets you know that. He lets you feel that. But he sits there, owning
Mm.
that desire and just almost penetrating from across the room, right? That's the kind of type of energy we're talking about. That's the kind of posture.
Yeah. And it's as soon as even you just saying it, my embodied reaction is like, it's safe to open to this. It's non-threatening, but it's
Mm-hmm.
still potent, expressive.
Yeah,
So it's very different from being like invaded or violated.
exactly. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I think I love that you put this language to it. It's funny because we had a bit of a situation in our community recently around a man being called out, and a lot of the women were saying, "But it's his energy." So it was very hard for him to be like, "But what am I doing?" And it was exactly that. We that very language you just said of like, if you could just hold your desire rather than pushing it energetically on all the women, it would feel much safer to be around you. And it was this like lack of containment that was what the feedback came from the feminists. Like, can you just hold it and own it as yours?
Mm.
Then it's optional. But if it's always projected and pushed onto us as women, it feels really unsafe. And we just want to put up a boundary towards that.
Yeah.
So I think it's really crucial. How can a man get more of that? Like, is this about like doing yoga or qigong or personal practice or just awareness? Like, do you have like methods?
I love that you asked that. It's, in a way, it's a whole blueprint of an embodied, integrated, empowered masculine. And it's doing all kinds of work. And
Mm,
it's about filling my own cup, right? So I fill my own cup so I'm full, right? I fill my own cup from my sexual pleasure practice, right? I get that. I fill my spiritual cup from my spiritual practice. I feel my physical cup from my physical practice. I'm having my emotional cup from my relationships, right? So I'm coming to you full.
mm,
What a relaxation and a relief when you meet a man that is full. That's some king energy, because then he's there with you, and then he's open to what wants to
mm,
happen, but he doesn't need that. He's not needy, he's not thirsty, he's not grabby, because he's
mm,
already coming for you full.
mm,
So we get that with doing sexual practices with our sexual energy. We're doing that from working out and getting into our bodies. We
mm,
do that with being on our purpose.
mm,
Huge. Knowing what am I here for and what am I serving, is just like fully landing me into myself, right? Doing my shadow work, so I'm not run by my shadows. I'm like, oh, that's my pattern. I see that. I acknowledge that. I give it love. But I'm not run by that. All of that, there is, so it's a whole mosaic of work on different levels, so I can come and hold myself in that posture of like, I'm full. I'm taking care of myself. And as I'm taking care of myself, I can bring something to you. I am
Mhm.
actually a gift to you. I am a gift to the world, to the feminine, and not in an egoic way, not in a proud way. I am just who I am, and I'm owning that.
Mhm.
And I'm going a little bit on a rant, and I'm talking a lot, but I just want to say something about true confidence. Because
Yeah.
a lot of men come to me and they ask, like, how can I be more confident with women? How can I be like, and I'm like, it's not about the pickup lines. It's not about what you wear. It's not about doing a pickup artist like thing that some of them come to me for.
Yeah.
It's like, how about you be exactly who you are? How about you own that? And that means, I can go to you and I say like, hey, I'm really inspired by you. I'm feeling kind of anxious about saying that.
Mhm.
Um, but thank you, right? Like just dropping the masks and being who I am without playing games. Doing that and having my cups filled just like gives me that confidence. A
Mhm.
tree doesn't try to be a tree. He's a tree.
Mhm.
He's not like, oh, should I be more of a bush? Should I be more like grow more apples? He's like, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I'm here for.
Mhm.
And I'm a part of this.
Mhm.
And then you're
So
like, oh, wow, that's a tree.
authenticity is the key. But then we looked at like if they're playing the nice guy, they're not being authentic. So there's a journey, but it's not of becoming a new flavor. It's not trying to become the tantric man or whatever. It's actually about undoing the pieces that were inauthentic and integrating the shadow and then bringing their authenticity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And one thing that we hear about in the tantra world is like sometimes women are like, oh, the men have done all the work. They suddenly realize they're really attractive to women. So then they flit around the place being really polyamorous, and then women are left yearning for more commitment. Is that a topic
Mm-hmm.
I can ask you about? Like I hear that a
Yeah.
lot of like, oh, I'm done with the tantric men because they just want to be with all the women. And like there are many women who really want to build a relationship with someone and have that beautiful journey with somebody. What's your experience with that in this field?
I mean, the experience, well, there's a few things. First of all, a lot of these so-called tantric men, and I've been in these communities and I've seen that it's interesting because they get to learn the masculine blueprint. They get to learn the Shivaness and that kind of energy, and then they try it on. They're like, oh, so I can eye gaze and I can be present and I can be confident and I can be directive and I can dance with her and take her on a journey and I can whatever give her like how many ever orgasms.
Yeah.
So you get that and it feels good, feels empowering for a man who was like, oh, I couldn't even talk to a woman. But then you're basically putting on the posture of a Shiva and the tools of a Shiva, but you're doing the same exact thing as a boy. You're going around, you're looking for validations, you're looking for your mom, you're looking for to tell you like, wow, you're such a good lover, you're such a good boy, wow, you're the prettiest, you're like, you're perfect, blah 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 blah. And it's still the boy who is not initiated and is not in service for the tribe. He's not in service for the feminine. He's not really in his masculine because if he's really in his masculine, He doesn't need that. He's
Mm.
here for something deeper.
Mm.
He's on purpose. And then that aligns and put into perspective everything else. And also he's aware. What do I mean? And I've been to that onto that journey. I've started, wow, being with women and like giving them experiences, but in the end, I left them, I opened them, and then there was a contraction because I didn't show up fully or till the end, right? So you
Mm.
create opening and more contraction and maybe even more mistrust in the masculine.
Mm.
If you're coming into your mature masculinity, you're like, that doesn't feel good. That's not what I'm here for. That's not my legacy.
Mm.
That's not what I want to leave after me. So, yes, we communicate and we tell them and we have the boundaries and we do the agreements. But if I left more contraction, if I see a trail of hurt women behind me, I'm out of alignment. This is not the man I want to be, right? It's not my purpose here.
Mm.
So that's almost like the next step of those men and really seeing like, hey, am I full? Am I just seeking for validation? Am I like an energetical vampire? And you see
Mm.
that a lot in the tantric community,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That's not a posture of an integrated man.
Mm-hmm.
Me coming to you like, oh, you're a goddess, let me like, and I'm like,
Yoni massage.
yeah, that's not what I'm talking about, right? Yeah.
And what do you think is the actually when I asked you about this podcast, one of the things you said is like how I want to teach men how to be part of the healing between the masculine and the feminine and not part of the problem. And I think we're like, yeah, that's exactly where we've arrived now. Like, how does that change happen? Because I think our tantra world is like evolving as a scene. I've been in the scene more than 20 years, and it's like the whole collective moves. And I feel like what you're speaking of is like a stage of evolution that our conscious sexuality scene could be on the brink of. There've been lots of falling outs recently of quite famous tantra teachers and leaders have been called out. There is now some self-reflection that needed to happen years ago happening because of that.
Mm.
And so I feel like what you're pointing to is so kind of crucial right now for the collective, for this field, especially to
Mhm.
evolve into. And so, what is it that instigates that change? Like, if you're posturing as a Shiva man and getting
Mhm.
laid, why to become a deeper man? Like, what is it that is there a yearning inside? Like, what makes that maturity happen?
Hmm. Thank you for that question. This is something that I'm really passionate about and really try to embody in my life and also with my clients and in my groups. It's like, how can we become a part of the healing,
Mm.
right? How can we become a part of the solution, you know? And the first thing is to first notice what's happening here, right? What is the problem if we want to see the solution? In part of the problem is that men are not showing up in that role, in that embodied, integrated, stable, centered, carrying the depth, carrying the direction, and leading in that direction, right? Not that men should supposed to lead and women supposed to follow, not in that sense, but like bringing our gifts, right? And women are not trusting. Women are like, where are the men? Or here, even in the tantric community, here's a Shiva I'm opening, and like, oh fuck, that left me more closed than before, right? And there's a growing mistrust between us and confusion.
Mm.
So a part of the healing and the solution is getting clear on ourselves, who we are, what are we here for, how do we show up with presence, how do we own our sexual energy and not being taken or directed by it, using it as a gift, right? Using our presence as a gift not needing and sucking energy from everywhere, looking where we do that and bring it to ourselves. We need to call each other out. So basically, have a circle of men you trust, men of substance, men of integrity, and have them, first of all, have that in your life, like continuously, but also with that culture of like, hey, this is what's happening. What do you see? Can you like, am I here? Am I missing something? And these men are like, yeah, man, I feel like your integrity there, or no, you're actually great there, or asking questions, right? Like that circle around the fire that
Mm,
enriches us.
mm,
And a big part of it is our relationship to the feminine. So doing that motion, letting go of the tit and starting be that type of a man that is not a liability on her, that doesn't pull from her and need from her and like need her to feel good about himself, doing the work and starting to come with the intention to enrich. You know, instead of me needing sex from you or needing validation of you or trying to take from you because I'm lacking, because there's a hole in my soul, first of all, tend to that hole in your soul. And if I come to you, let me enrich you. Let me look you in the eye, be present with you. Let me sit in myself in a way that you can trust me and therefore trust men, trust the masculine a little bit more. Let me share my gifts with you if they're wanted, if it's appropriate. For that, I need to know what do I have to offer.
mm,
I need to become a man of substance in order to do that. And let me hold you in a safe way. You know, a big part is safety. How can you promote safety in your relationships? How can you promote safety with the women you meet, especially with the women you relate with, you know? And how can you create more openness, more expansion, more trust? And it comes to that question of what is my legacy? What do I want to leave behind me?
mm.
You know? That's a part of it, you know?
It's so beautiful to hear.
Mm.
What is your legacy?
Mm.
You've obviously asked this question, so
Yeah.
what did you come up with? What do you want to leave behind you?
Hmm. You know, it's almost like I feel like I'm in service to union.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like something that came really in the last 2 years, more and more. I'm in
Mm,
service to union, that union between the masculine and the feminine. And it starts within. So my
mm,
masculine, my feminine, how do they relate to each other? How do they hold each other? How do they dance in that upward spiral so I can connect to spirit, to God, to my purpose, right?
mm,
So that union. And then how do we, with men and women, or whoever is the same sex partners, but like whatever, whoever you are, how can we have that union between the masculine and the feminine, between me and you, me and my friends, even me and my brothers, right? And then upwards is that union between me and the feminine, capital F, life, you
mm,
know, nature, everything that's around me. And that union again for me is that if we come into that dance, if we're here to support each other, expand each other, hold each other in a beneficial way, then that's heaven on earth. Then we
yeah.
can reach oneness, right? So that's the overarch. That's the what I'm in service for, and again, how to translate that into my mission right now is about bringing the brothers together, bringing the men together,
Mm,
initiating men, clarifying holding men in a way that can support them in reclaiming their own power and their purpose and their power. Oh, repeating myself, but bring them to themselves, so it's also a service to the women, right? If the men are like that, it's a different ball game. So
Yeah.
my legacy is that of union and of supporting the brothers to come back into their freedom, integrity, and purpose.
Mm. Ah. It's so beautiful to hear your words. Yeah, I feel very grateful that you're doing this work, and I feel like you're
Mm.
putting voice to a lot that, yeah, I think women's groups started so much earlier. Certainly when I began doing them, there were hardly any men's groups. And even now
Mm-hmm.
it's balance. And so I think it's so important, the work that you're doing and the voice that
Mm-hmm.
you're putting as well.
Yeah, and we're catching
So,
up. There is way more in the
yeah.
last few years. Like men's work and men's coaches are like popping up everywhere. So and I'm really grateful for that. It's really
Mhm.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're really grateful as well. Just want to say that. I know I can
Mm-hmm.
speak on behalf of a lot of women because I spend so much time. I have a 1 month long women's intensive, so I spend a lot of
Mm-hmm.
time with women's voices. And
Yeah.
I know they're all going to love this podcast when I send it to them. But I think
Mm-hmm.
also it's a benefit for men to have a voice of guidance. It is complicated times, and I think you speak very clearly into that complication, but also ways to move out of it and through
Yeah.
it.
And
So
Shashi, I want to also use this opportunity to thank you for your work, because I have a lot of sisters who've gone through your initiations and your courses, and all speaking very highly of your work. So yeah, really honored to meet you, and for the length of time and the longevity that you've been doing this work. So thank you. Thank you for that.
well, like you, I have so much reward in being part of this healing between the masculine and the feminine, and both internally as well as externally. I feel like so
Mm-hmm.
much. I feel like relationship, on whatever form, is so much core to our happiness in our life, and yet so many people are struggling with it. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like you say, we don't have enough guidance, and I think it's great
Yeah.
that we have these new possibilities for people with our tantra world. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much, and I'll make sure there are links connected to this video and people can find you. And you know that definitely I recommend people following you on Instagram because your videos are always worth listening to, even though they're often targeted at men. I like listening to them,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm always
Thank you.
forwarding people.
Hmm. Thank you so much. And I just want to use this opportunity to say, I work with men, I hold men's container, and at the same time, I also work with a lot of women. Actually, right now, I have more women clients, like one on one clients, which is kind of funny. But I also work with women about um, a lot of shadow work, a lot of trauma integration, and I love to support women in that way, also with that transmission. Um, Doing my best as an integrated masculine, and like a masculine holding them in that way and helping them in that way. So to all the sisters, I'm here for you as well. To all the brothers, I'm here for you as well. And yeah, just to say that and put that invitation. And couples, obviously. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I've so enjoyed this, and I hope we get to work together in person at some point.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Shashi.
Thank you.